Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Rohit. Today we'll talk about the change management. So today we'll talk about the change management. So what are the topics we are going to cover first? We'll see, and then I'll go to that actual practical change management module in the ServiceNow. So first we'll talk about the what is the change management and what are the type of change we are actually going to use that, and then what are the plugins you might need to be installed, and then we'll talk about the live demo. So what is the change management? Why we need the change management? So a change request are the record the details information about change such as the reason of the change, the priority risk, type of the change and the change category. So basically, whenever you want to move anything, whenever let's take example of that, you want to replace your system, you need to replace, upgrade your system, you need to change the router. In that case, you need the change, and in that change is the validated instance and validated record, and it has to be go through by multiple approval process, and then after that. After approval, the actual implementation needs to be done, and then your change needs to be completed. So what is change management? Change management in the service now involves the provision of a systematic approach to control the life cycle of all changes, facilitating beneficial changes to be made with the minimal distribution of IT service. So during the change management, it can be happens that it can be impact your instance, it can be impact your IT industry. In that case, we are trying to overcome, we are trying to minimize that risk factor during the change management. So let's see what we are going to do that. So what are the type of change we have? So change management supports the three types of change in the ITL distribute. So totally we have three types of change. So very first thing is that we have a normal change. So this normal change is that already predefined change that might be quarterly or maybe monthly. There will be some update happens in your system. That is the normal change. So in that change, normal change, improve your services. So right now maybe there is one patch you are going to do another patch. That will be a normal change. And definitely it needs a multiple approvals. Definitely out of box in ServiceNow, there is a two approval needed. One is the group approval, another is the CAP approval needed, which is the change advisor board. That approval you needed. That is the out of box configuration. You can do customization. Today we'll mostly focus on the out of box. Next is the standard change. So standard change is the pre-authorized, or you can say pre-approved. So it's already approved. It frequently happens. So in that case, you don't need to it much impact in your organization. Let's take example that you need to be replace one laptop for one of the associates. It does not have much impact in the IT industry, but it need a change. That case we can say the standard change. Emergency changes. Normally emergency changes are used to be bug fixing. So suppose you have implemented some of the things in by normal change, and now you find out that one major issues happen in your environment. In that case, you need the emergency change. For emergency change, we don't need that group approval by out of box. We need the CAB approval or the change advisory board approval, and by that we can go and fix our issue by following the change process. Now next is the change policy. In the change approval, what are the policy we follow? We will talk about those one. So we change policy we'll talk about in our live scenario. Now what are the change state in we have? So basically we have a change state called new, access, authorize, schedule, implementation, review, closed and cancelled. So in the new, whatever changes you have made, what a new state, you just create a change request. You don't have much information. You just keep enhancing your change, and that state we call the new. You can just submit, and that change will be a new state. After that, we have a access. In the access states, we'll go access and authorized state. So basically, access state will go by the normal change. So that access state in by out of box access steps will be go by that approval groups. Whoever is assigned to member, in that case, it will be an access state. We'll talk about that one. Authorized state, the change advisory board will be approved. So if your approval goes to the change advisory board, in that case it will be state will be authorized. Schedule state, you are going to schedule that what time the change actually needs to be implemented, and then you move to the implement state. So once you move to the implement state, there will be two tasks. One is the implementation task, and one more task will be the post implementation task. Those tasks will be there. After your completion of those, it will be go to the review state, and then after review, the change can be closed or cancelled. So let's see one by one in the live scenario. This is my ServiceNow instance. Here what I'll do, I'll go to the change request, and then first of all I'll create a new change. So when you creating a new change, there will be three options you can see. One is the create normal change, another is the standard change, and then third is the create emergency change. If you see the description, what it is telling that normal change are generally purpose change type that requires one or more approval. So normal change definitely need that more than one approval. In that case, we use the normal change. Standard change, if you see that the select from available pre-approved change template. So basically, standard change will be created from a pre-approved template. It does not require any approval. And then last is that we have a create emergency change. Emergency changes are a change that must be implemented as soon as possible, but it needs a change advisory board approval by default. So let's see one by one. So I'm going to create a new change. So whenever you click that new change, very first thing is you can see that all that state is showing in your top here called new access authorized schedule implementation. These state are basically this state. Okay. So whenever you open that, by default your requested by is coming by default, and then category is coming like by default others. Service offering configuration item, these are the coming as a blank. So let's select one of these configuration item. I'll select one of the configuration item, and then you can define the priority and you can define the category. I'll not put all those details. I'll just put the short description called system update. Same short description, go to the description, and then if you go to the planning state, there are many fields called justification, implementation plan, risk and impact analysis, backout plan, test plan. These are the fields which actually define your change, that what you are going to do that, and whoever is going to approve, they will definitely go through those details, and then based on that these will be approved. Although this is the plain text field, so there is no functionality changes, but yes, whoever is going to be approved, they will review all those details, and then they will review that. So initially the state will be new, and then you can save that change request. Once your change request is saved, you can see there is a one button is visible called request approval. So to request a approval, definitely you need assignment groups, which is a mandatory field. We'll come to that. So in the bottom, you can see CI, we have selected add where, and then that CI is automatically added into the affected CI. It means that this CI is by default affected. Now what we'll do, I'll click the request for approval, and definitely it will throw an error for assignment group mandatory. So you can see it's by default is popping up for assignment mandatory. So I'll click that help desk and then click the request for approval. So once we click the request for approval, you can see this change, the state is automatically changes to the assess state, and then here in the approval tab, you can see there is a one approval is showing, and which is a group approval, and this group I guess have only one user. So you can see this help desk group have only one user, that's why that one user approval is needed. So very first thing is that in access state, the approval will be needed from the approval group. So once this approval will approve, and before we approve, I'll go to the show workflow and we'll show you that workflow. So now you can see this is my workflow. What it is saying that it's a beginning state and then it is waiting for access. It means that whenever you click the request for access, I mean request for approval, it move to the access state and then it go to the approval action. From the approval actions, it will hold to the access state and it will check the change approval policy. What is the change approval policy? That is very important in this out of box workflow. So if you scroll down under this change policy, there is a one change approval policy and then approval definition is there. So if I open the change approval policy, what it is saying that it have a each change have a different policy. So let's open that normal change policy. So what normal change policy is saying that it is run all the decision that matched. So if your decision is matched, then only normal change will be, I mean, this change policy will be picked up. So what input it is taking? It is picking up the change request and the manager approved field is true false. So if I go to the decision tab, there is a three condition for normal change. Let's see the first condition. So very first condition is saying that if the state is -4, it will go for assignment group approval. Okay. So this is the one condition. So another condition is the state is -3 and his risk is 4 and then manager approval is false, it will go for the manager approval. If the state is 3 and then risk is 2 and 3 and then change request equal to -3, so in that case it will go to the cap approval. Okay, so step 4 is, I mean, the state 4 is nothing but is your access state. So right now we are in the access state and that's the reason by default it go to the assignment group approval. How it is defined on the assignment group approval, I will open this change approval policy first. So if you see here in the decision, its state is access. So if the change state is access, and that in that case, it will be select one answer, which is the assignment groups approval. Okay, and that is a change approval definition. In your change approval, I told you that there is a two important factor. One is the change approval policy and another is the change approval definition. So inside the change approval policy, you have a decision, and inside the decision, you have selected that change approval definition. What it is saying that? It is saying that at group approval and to whom it should be assignment group, whatever the assignment group will be selected, it will be go for that approval. And once you can see a fast response, all response or percentage of users. So if somebody responses, it will go to the next state. Okay, so that's what out of box is. So now next we'll approve that. So once we approve this change request, you can see the change request is moved to the authorized section. In this authorized sections, if I refresh that, you can see it is approved and it go to that authorized and hold, it will hold, and then again it go to the change approval policy. So what is the change approval policy here in our normal change? For normal change, if the state is 3, which is the authorized state, and then if any of this condition match, it will go either for cap approval or the assignment group manager approval. So let's see. You can see right now it's generate a cap approval because it matches the cap approval on these matches. So if I open the definition of this one, cap approval definition, what it is saying that it should go to that cap approval. Okay, you can select that approval definition of the change request. If you select the change request, you have to be select that which field you want to trigger the approval. If you select the change approval definition, it will allow you to select the groups. So now it's go to the change approval here, and then what we have to do, we have to approve. So I'll go and approve this change request. Once we approve that, you can see this state will be moved to that another state, which is the definitely is the you can see the schedule state. After approved, it will move to the schedule state. Right now we are in the schedule state. If you go to the schedule tab, you have options called scheduling, call when you want to actually plan for the change. So let's select the plan for maybe today or maybe 2 to 3 days later, and then here, and then save that. So here we are scheduling that change, and then once we schedule that, you have a conflict option. Here you can see one conflict it detected, and what is the conflict is it is saying that not in that maintenance window. So we have two more things called maintenance window and blackout window. So each CI have a maintenance window. You cannot you cannot schedule any change which is unnecessary in any of this date. In that case, it will be generate a conflict. So if you see that global, it's generate a not in maintenance Windows conflict, and which is from the global infrastructure. If I open the global infrastructure, what definition it is saying that it's apply on the CMDB CI table and the weekend. So you can only schedule that CI on the weekends, not the weekdays. We schedule that into the weekdays. That's why we generate it's generate a conflict. So let's select that 19 and then save again to resolve the conflict. So you can see still it is having some conflict. So you can see this is still conflict. If I go back to here in the conflict tab, it is saying the same from the global infrastructure. And if I go here, what it is saying that it should be in weekends. So I will open the schedule entry, and it is saying that I can schedule from 1 to 4 in that time. So let's change this schedule from 2, and here we'll select that 3 and save that and click check conflict. Hopefully it will resolve the conflict. Otherwise you can go by conflict, but again going with the conflict is not a good option. Now you can see if I check conflict, if I click here, there is no conflict here. It is not showing any of this conflict because our conflict is resolved. Now we can click the implementation, and it is saying that conflict status is no conflict. If I click that implementation, the change will be moved to the implementation state. And if I go back to the workflow, what it is saying that it will call one more sub workflow called change request normal change task. So let's refresh complete browser, and it will attach another sub workflow which is generate two tasks. One is the create implementation task and create post implementation task. After having this complete, this to complete, this workflow will be complete. So let's go back here. So these two tasks are generated. One is the implementation, another is the post implementation. I'll open one implementation task, close that. And now if I refresh browser, this one is done. This one is still waiting, and it is waiting in the join state. So we'll open another one, post implementation, and close that. So I'll close quickly this one. So now if I refresh this, both the task is completed, and if I refresh here, it moved to the review state right now. So if you see that if I refresh this browser, current state of this is the review state, and from the review state you can close or complete. Whenever you click the close, it will have two field mandatory. One is a close code, another is a close node. successful or successful with issue or unsuccessful, you can define that. So let's define and then close that. So in that case or in that way, you can close a change request. So that is a complete process for normal change. For your emergency change, only difference will be there is that if you see this workflow, there won't be any access schedule, access state. It will directly go to this authorized, because as per our change policy, if I open this change policy, we don't define that access for access state for the change policy for emergency change. So let's see that. If I go back here and then open that change policy, so change approval policy, and if I open that emergency change policy, I will see only one decision, that is called, you can see require cab approval, which will generate the cab approval. So in that case, if you generate a change request, it will only generate the cab approval, it will don't generate the group approval. The next thing we'll talk about quickly, that standard change, how we can generate the standard change. Standard change are by default pre-approved, and normally standard change you can by directly go and click here and generate, create a standard change. So once you click that, it will redirect basically the standard catalog. From the catalog, it will generate a standard change. So let's say the network server standard change. Once you select that and once you select the catalog item, you can see by default it will have all these details, and these details will be read only. You cannot change. You can put some basic details and then configuration item and save that. As earlier we discussed that standard change does not need any approval, so there is a no request for approval button is there. It's directly have a schedule button. So once you click the schedule button, all this access and authorized step will be skipped. There won't be any approval. It will go to the schedule step, and for that, from there, it will follow the standard process. If you go to the schedule, this workflow, there is nothing a major workflow. It will generate a change standard task, which is pre-approval and implementation and post-implementation task, and then after that it will be complete. Two things I want to discuss in this change. The very first thing is the change schedule. In this change schedule, you can see whatever change you have scheduled on your, all the change which is in schedule right now. Next is the schedule definition, where the schedule definition is there. The blackout schedule. So in this blackout schedule is nothing but in that frame you cannot, in this schedule you cannot create any change. In that is called freeze time, you can say. Another is the maintenance schedule. So we talk about the maintenance schedule. In this maintenance schedule, you can only create within this framework. So basically, these two are vice versa. Maintenance schedule is allow you to create a change between this time frame. If you don't create, it will show the conflict. The blackout change also is the change freeze time, which is defined here. These two are important factor, and definitely under the change policy, you have a change approval policy and then change approval definition. These are the important factor. Apart from that, you can calculate the change by going to the change record. There will be one option called calculate risk. You can calculate your change by clicking off that action. If you see, there will be calculate risk button. If you click that, it will be calculate that. Well, basically, it will calculate the risk, and it is right now showing that low. So if you click the view details, it will show that in details the risk calculation rules is showing low right now. So from where this is coming, those change calculation rules, which is nothing but you can see this is a change risk condition. So if I open the by default here, so it's saying that risk will be low if the impact is 3. So that is the risk calculation point. Okay. Apart from that, you can install that risk assessment plugins that will additionally help you to calculate the risk. And also ServiceNow is by default out of box providing you the ATF suites which you can run and then check that your change management module. So that's it for today. Thank you guys. Have a great day.